Hey guys, Angel Bags here. In this episode, Frankie will talk about improving your neutral game by telling you how to be more confident in your game. I hope you guys enjoy.
Before we get into what confidence is in general, benefits of having confidence in your play are you'll never have to blame another loss in your career on something that you didn't know, and it's all just because your opponent played better than you at the moment. And I think that that's something that gets understated. A lot of the times people lose, it's not because their opponents are necessarily better, but it's just because they didn't play up to their full potential because of lack of confidence. The quickest way to get confidence, honestly, and the most effective way is to just hit the lab. Confidence isn't something that you can kind of just muster up. Confidence is a habit. The only way to exercise that habit is to always be prepared for every situation that you think you encounter in a tournament. If you prepare well enough, you're going to feel confident no matter what. Nobody's going to have to tell you to be confident if you prepare as well as you can. And that includes going into training mode and thinking about situations that have vexed you in the past or situations that occur in a normal basis in a matchup. That leads to the next way that you can always build confidence is to never think that you've trained enough. If you think that you've done enough in practice mode, smack yourself because you're stupid and then go back into practice mode because you haven't done enough. As much as you think you've done, there's always more to be done. Training mode has to be your muse. You have to be constantly in training mode, inspired to think of better ways to approach situations. And just by simply knowing, you're going to walk into every tournament match confident because you're going to have a game plan. So all of that preparation is going to lead you to having a game plan, a skeletal game plan upon which you can change and adjust based on the skill level of your opponent. If you have a skeletal game plan based on your preparation that you can go into every match, then as your opponent adjusts to the good things that you're doing, you have direction in terms of solving things on the fly. But if you don't have a game plan set, then you're just setting yourself up to autopilot and to lose a lot easier than you should be losing. And all of that could be mitigated just by going into training mode and paying your dues in the grid. Faking confidence does apply in fighting games, but I don't want to say that faking confidence is a good thing in fighting games because fighting games are pretty transparent in terms of what a person knows and doesn't know. And you could be confident up until the point where you have to play somebody who's going to test your confidence. It's easier to be confident in a team game where you're not asked to step up at every single moment of the duration of the game. Fighting is very different because you are tested every single second that you're playing. So if your confidence is ill-positioned from a place that's not real, then you're going to get exposed. So one thing that players should work on in terms of getting their confidence up is to not compare yourself to other players. Don't compare your progress to other players' progress because everybody's road is a little bit different. And you can't compare having to practice on your own to maybe top players who have better resources in terms of they played the game a little bit longer than you had the opportunity to. Or maybe they play better players that can teach them things a lot faster than practicing in training mode. So you can't compare yourself to other people because not everybody has the same resources. And I think that that's a pitfall that people get into. Maybe you're a Laura player in New York and you're comparing yourself to Jibbo, who's doing well with Laura in North Carolina, and he's winning over there. His circumstances are a lot different than any player in New York's would be. He might not be getting tested at the same level that a player in New York is getting tested. So to gauge your progress based on somebody else's success who isn't in your vicinity is a recipe for making yourself feel a lot worse than you should on your progress. A player's mindset should always be on what they can control and not focus on things that they can't control. A lot of the times I hear players complaining about other players' decisions, and you can sort of control that in a micro sense when you're playing the game, but you're never going to change the frame data on Chun-Li's air lightning legs. That's never going to change. You're not going to make your shitty anti-airs better. You cannot control that. However, you can control your spacing. You can make yourself not be in Chun-Li's low forward range or Chun-Li's air lightning leg range. You can choose to stand at a place where you can always find a proper anti-air, as opposed to trying to stay in ranges where you know you shouldn't because you can't anti-air. These are the things that people should be focusing on, because a game like Street Fighter V is very similar to Street Fighter 2 in that matchups change based on the character's positioning on the screen. It's not based on what super do I have, like in Ultra. It's not based on what super art did I pick, like in Third Strike. It's not based on how consistent can I red parry something to make something that's normally safe unsafe. It's really based on where are you on the screen, because where you are on the screen is going to determine your options and your opponent's options. So you have to figure that out, and that goes all the way back to preparation. You have to be able to know what range you want to be in at all times, and that should be your metagame. You can't control frame data, but you can control your decisions and your positioning and your spacing and your punishes, and all of that could be fine-tuned in training mode. You just have to put in the proper time and play players who can test your theories out for you. Maybe you think you have a solution to something and a player can show you that no, you don't. And then that leads to the next thing, is always be your worst critic. If you're not your own worst critic, then nobody else can ever put pressure on you to perform a certain way, because nobody else's expectations can ever exceed your own. Being objective, and I say being critical of yourself, is to be objective in how you're progressing and what you should work on. That also leads to feeling good about how you're improving. And I think that people don't give themselves enough credit for the little things. There's always a silver lining, and coming away from a match, there can always be a silver lining. That doesn't necessarily have to mean you won the match in order to feel good about the way that you played. Coming from playing Third Strike, anti-airing with emotion wasn't a thing that's prevalent in that game. So when I moved over to Ultra Street Fighter, I was having a hard time anti-airing people because I wasn't used to doing it. So every session that I held, I made it a point to just focus on anti-airing. And I didn't win a single game that entire night. But I didn't let any jump in go away. People aim to win too much and win by any means necessary in casuals, and that doesn't translate to tournament success. One knows that they're having trouble anti-airing and they've been working on it, and the next tournament match that they play in, they lose their tournament match, but their opponent didn't jump in on them at all because they couldn't, because you anti-aired. That's something that you need to feel good about, and that's something that you should build upon and feel confident about. Wins and losses are not at all the way that people should be gauging their progress, and I think it works both ways. Players don't feel good about themselves because they did good shit but didn't win the round, and players who didn't do good shit at all but still wins games feel good about the way that they play when they shouldn't. They should be ashamed of themselves sometimes. But it all goes back to being honest with yourself, and I think that that's the best way to work on your shortcomings in training mode.
And that about covers improving your confidence. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any topics or discussions that you would like covered in future episodes of Feetwork, feel free to leave a comment or hit up Frankie on Twitter at Frankie3s. This is Bag signing off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of Feetwork.